The moment I knew I was falling in love with another woman, I was standing backstage at the biggest awards ceremony of my life, clutching a golden statuette with hands that wouldn't stop trembling, listening as the crowd cheered my name. 1,000 flashes exploded as I waved, and somewhere beyond the blinding lights I saw her, Olivia, standing with her impossibly calm smile, her eyes shining in a way that made my entire world tilt. The night should have been the peak of my career, the culmination of a decade of work and sacrifice. But all I could think was how badly I wanted to find an empty room and kiss her, senseless consequences be damned. Because in that moment of triumph, surrounded by Hollywood royalty and industry giants, I realized that the only person whose opinion truly mattered wasn't in the audience or on the stage. She was standing in the wings, wearing jeans and a blazer she'd borrowed from me, looking at me like I just hung the moon and I knew my life would never be the same. Pause for a second. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from, which city, which country, which little corner of the world. And please subscribe if you believe these stories deserve to be told. Your support helps us reach more people with stories like mine, stories that matter, stories about love that changes everything. My name is Lauren Avery. For most of my life, I have been defined by dimples and laughter, by dozens of romantic comedies where I play the charming girl next door who always gets the guy, and by headlines that never quite captured the real me. I grew up in Manhattan, the daughter of a theater actress and a corporate lawyer. Was discovered by an agent at 19 while performing in an off-Broadway production, and by the time I turned 28, my face was on billboards from Los Angeles to Tokyo. I had done everything the agents and publicists and fan forums said a famous actress should do. I dated handsome actors and musicians for the cameras, smiled for photos at premieres, attended every charity gala and designer gowns, played quirky heroines getting swept off their feet by the right man in the third act, and never once admitted that something felt fundamentally wrong about the life I was living. But the truth is, the most radical love story of my life never made it to the tabloids until we wanted it to. The woman who changed everything for me was not a household name, not part of my world of red carpets and directors and million-dollar contracts. She was Olivia Hart, a set designer with paint perpetually under her nails, and a quiet sadness in her smile, who saw through my carefully constructed persona when I was sure nobody could. I met Olivia on the set of Midnight in Manhattan, my 12th film and the one everyone in the industry believed would finally get me the Oscar nomination I'd deep been chasing. It was an ambitious independent drama about a jazz singer in the 1950s, and the director, Marcus Chun, wanted authenticity above all else. He filled the crew with artists and theater veterans, people who cared more about truth than polish, and Olivia was his star set designer, the woman responsible for creating the smoky clubs and cramped apartments that would make our story feel real. I noticed Olivia immediately the first day on set. She was tall, nearly 6 feet in her work boots, with close-cropped hair dyed honey brown, wearing carpenter pants covered in paint splatters and a faded t-shirt from some band I'd never heard of. She had this way of moving through the world as if she were apologizing for taking up space, her shoulders slightly hunched, her voice soft when she spoke to the crew. But when she talked about her work, about the architecture of a scene, or the emotional resonance of color choices, her whole face transformed. She became animated, passionate, alive in a way that made me unable to look away. Our first real conversation happened because I spilled coffee all over myself during rehearsal. I was running lines with my co-star between takes, holding a paper cup too carelessly, and suddenly my white blouse was brown and I was cursing under my breath, looking around desperately for napkins. Olivia appeared beside me with a clean towel and, seeing the panic in my eyes, pulled a small bottle of gentle soap from her tool belt. "Marathon caffeine consumption hazard," she said, grinning. "I've learned to come prepared. This should get the stain out if you rinse it quick." "Are you always this prepared for disasters?" I asked, grateful and embarrassed. "Only the ones that matter," she replied, and something in the way she said it made me believe she meant more than coffee stains. From that moment, Olivia became my safe space between the chaos of filming. During breaks, while other crew members scrolled their phones or gossiped, I found myself gravitating toward wherever Olivia was working. We talked while she fixed a broken table leg in my character's apartment set, or while she carefully painted faux brick for a recreated city alley. She asked me questions nobody else asked, about my childhood in New York, about the first play I ever loved, about what parts of acting brought me joy that had nothing to do with fame or recognition. Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life? I asked her one afternoon, sitting on the floor of the empty set while she touched up baseboards. Every day until I was 25, Olivia said quietly. Then I stopped, and it was terrifying and liberating all at once. What changed? I came out. Told my family I was gay, told my friends, stopped pretending I could be who they wanted me to be. She glanced at me, something vulnerable in her eyes. Lost some people, kept the ones who mattered, and finally got to stop performing. The word performing hit me like a physical blow. Because that's what I'd been doing my entire life, wasn't it? Performing the role of Lauren Avery, America's sweetheart, the girl who dates the right men and says the right things and never ever admits that maybe the butterflies I was supposed to feel for leading men felt more like nausea. After 2 weeks of filming, I realized I looked forward to seeing Olivia more than I looked forward to actual shooting days. I found excuses to visit the set design workshop, bringing coffee for the crew, asking Olivia's opinion on my character's apartment layout, even though that wasn't remotely my job. She never made me feel intrusive. She just smiled that quiet smile and made space for me in her world. When midnight in Manhattan wrapped after 8 weeks of shooting, Olivia and I exchanged numbers. I told her I'd call. She said maybe we could get coffee sometime, her words tentative as if she expected me to forget her the minute the shoot ended and I returned to my real life of premieres and publicity tours. Instead, I texted her that same night, before I'd even taken off my makeup. Caffeine emergencies await. Name the place and time. Olivia picked a Greasy Spoon diner on the Lower East Side, the kind of place my publicist would have murdered me for walking into without a disguise. It had cracked vinyl booths, fluorescent lights that flickered, and the best pancakes I'd ever tasted in my life. Olivia showed up wearing paint-streaked jeans, a battered green parka, and boots held together with what looked like duct tape. She laughed when she saw me in designer jeans, heels, and oversized sunglasses. "You clean up well," she teased, sliding into the booth across from me. "You mean I'm overdressed for this establishment? You're always exactly as you need to be." She looked down at her coffee, something sad flickering across her face. "That's a skill I haven't mastered." We talked for 4 hours about everything and nothing. She told me about growing up in Portland, about her parents' divorce when she was 13, about the art teacher who saw something in her angry teenage sketches and convinced her to apply to design school. I told her about my mother's failed acting career, about the pressure to succeed where she hadn't, about the loneliness of being recognized everywhere but truly known nowhere. The diner slowly emptied around us, the waitress giving us increasingly pointed looks, but I barely noticed. When rain began to tap against the smudged window, Olivia finally reached for her wallet. "Let me pay," she said. "You've covered enough billionaire cocktail parties for the universe." I touched her hand, meaning only to thank her for the gesture, but the contact lingered longer than it should have. The space between us shifted, became charged with something I didn't have words for. "Olivia, have you ever ... I started, but she shook her head gently. "Don't ask questions you're not ready to answer," she said, her voice kind but firm. "Not every story is ours to tell, especially not when the world is watching." That night I lay in bed in my Upper West Side apartment staring at the ceiling, thinking about her hands and the way she bit her lip when she was nervous and the sadness in her smile that made me want to fix everything broken in her world. For weeks, I tried to ignore the feeling growing in my chest. I dated a musician for a month because my publicist said I needed to be seen with someone, anyone, to keep my name in the romantic news cycle. I finished post-production publicity for the film, attended charity dinners in borrowed gowns, let strangers compliment my hair and my dress and my smile. But every empty compliment made me ache for Olivia's honest eyes, for the way she saw through my performance to whatever was real underneath. 3 weeks after our diner breakfast, I ran into Olivia at a gallery opening in Chelsea. One of her design colleagues was having a show, and Olivia was there in a thrifted black dress and boots, her hair tucked behind one ear, holding a plastic wine cup like it was a shield against the art world pretensions surrounding her. When our eyes met across the crowded gallery, I felt something snap inside my chest, like a wire that had been stretched too tight finally breaking free. I walked up to her, took her hand without asking permission, and led her outside into the cool October air. "Would you come home with me?" I asked, suddenly reckless, suddenly not caring about publicists or headlines or anything except the woman standing in front of me. Olivia stared at me, surprise and hope and fear all flickering across her face in quick succession. "Lauren, you know who you are, right? You know what this means? I know you're brave. I know you're kind. I think you're the most beautiful person I've ever met." My voice was shaking, but I couldn't stop. I don't know what I'm doing or what this means about me, but I know I can't keep pretending I don't feel this. She laughed, breathless, tears suddenly in her eyes. "You're not supposed to fall for the set designer. It's not in the script. Then let's write a new one. Let's break every rule." We left the gallery and walked through the rainy city to my apartment, holding hands like teenagers, neither of us speaking because words felt too small for what was happening. Inside my apartment, standing in my kitchen with city lights glowing through the windows, I hesitated. I had kissed dozens of men on camera, had performed passion for audiences of millions, but I had never kissed a woman. I didn't know what to do, how to start, whether I was even allowed to want this. Olivia set down her wine glass, stepped into my space with heartbreaking gentleness, and kissed me slowly, sweetly, like she was answering every question I hadn't dared to ask. Her lips were soft and tasted of red wine and rain. And when she pulled me closer, her hands in my hair, I felt something unlock inside me that I hadn't known was closed. My nerves vanished, replaced by a rightness so profound it made me want to cry. That night changed everything. We began seeing each other in secret, both of us terrified of what would happen if the world found out. I was scared of losing my career, of disappointing my family, of confirming every homophobic fear that still lurked in Hollywood's corners. Olivia was scared of being the reason my life imploded, of being blamed for corrupting America's sweetheart, of having her private life dissected by millions of strangers. So we were careful. She came to my apartment through the service entrance. We went to restaurants in Brooklyn where nobody recognized me. We built a private world where we could be ourselves, where I could learn what it meant to love someone without performing. Olivia taught me what real intimacy was. Not the choreographed kisses of movie sets or the strategic dates with men chosen by publicists, but the quiet unfolding of two people learning each other. We spent Sunday mornings painting together in her cramped studio apartment, me terrible at it but loving the peace of creating something with my hands. We cooked dinners with groceries from tiny immigrant shops she knew, recipes from her grandmother, meals that tasted like home. We danced in my living room to vinyl records I'd inherited from my mother, old jazz and folk music I'd never shared with anyone else. Olivia wrote me letters on scraps of paper and tucked them into my coat pockets, simple words that meant everything. "You matter to me. You're not alone." Love, oh. But the truth of our relationship couldn't stay hidden forever. 6 months after that first kiss, we were spotted by a paparazzo outside her studio in Bushwick. We'd been careless, too happy to remember to check for cameras, and he caught us in a long kiss goodbye before I got into my car. The photo went viral within hours. My phone exploded with messages from my agent, my publicist, my mother, my former co-stars. Comments flooded my social media, a toxic mix of support and vitriol and invasive questions I'd never consented to answering. Olivia withdrew into herself, terrified she'd ruin my career and my life. I tried to reassure her, but the pressure was overwhelming. I lost a rom-com role I'd been excited about, the director saying my new public image didn't fit the fantasy they were selling. Sponsors pulled endorsements. Tabloids ran cruel headlines. My agent called me crying, saying, "People want you as their fantasy, Lauren. You're not allowed to complicate it." The night after my agent dropped me, Olivia begged me to end our relationship so I could salvage what remained of my career. We fought in her apartment, both of us desperate and angry and terrified. "I love you," I said, voice breaking. "I won't pretend you don't exist. I won't go back to performing a lie. If you love me," Olivia shot back, tears streaming down her face, "then build a life with me. Don't just choose me when it's easy. Choose me when it costs you everything." So I did. I left my agent and found new representation with a small firm that specialized in LGBTQ talent. I publicly thanked Olivia for her art and her heart in an Instagram post that broke the internet. I wrote an open letter published in several outlets, telling the world that people are complicated, that sexuality is fluid, that love deserves honesty instead of permission. I said I wouldn't apologize for loving a woman, for discovering something true about myself, for refusing to live a lie to make others comfortable. The backlash was brutal and swift. Conservative groups called for boycotts. Trolls sent death threats. My mother cried on the phone, worried for my safety. Studios that had courted me went silent. For months, I thought my career was over. But through it all, Olivia never flinched. She held my hand at the premiere of Midnight in Manhattan, her presence making me braver than I'd ever been. We lived our lives quietly but visibly, her work continuing to thrive, mine shifting towards smaller independent projects with directors who valued authenticity. I started coaching young actresses, teaching them to find truth in performance, encouraging them to be brave in their own lives. Olivia designed sets for off-Broadway productions, and we built a life in Brooklyn far from the Hollywood machine that had tried to destroy us. Over 2 years, something unexpected happened. The world softened. Messages of support outweighed the hate. Young queer people told me I'd given them courage. I was cast in an LGBTQ-themed drama that became a surprise hit, earning critical acclaim and proving that audiences could accept me as something other than the straight rom-com queen. I didn't win that Oscar everyone thought Midnight in Manhattan would get me. But I won smaller awards that meant more because they came from communities that understood what it cost to live truthfully. 3 years after that viral photo, I'm standing on another stage at another awards show. This time for Best Actress in an independent film about 2 women falling in love in 1960s New York. The irony isn't lost on me. As I give my acceptance speech, I see Olivia in the wings, wearing the blazer I lent her, her eyes shining with pride. And I know with absolute certainty that losing everything was worth it for this, for her, for the life we built together. If you've ever had to choose between being loved and being truly seen, if you've ever had to risk everything for authenticity, I want to hear your story. Tell me where you're watching from in the comments below. And subscribe to help these stories reach the people who desperately need them. Your courage and your support are what makes stories like mine possible. What let others know they're not alone. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And remember, sometimes the most radical thing you can do is love who you love, loudly, wildly, unapologetically. Because that love might just change everything.